In the last lecture, we learned that we have ViewChild and how we can access it in our lifecycle hooks. Now there's one other nice little addition. In app component, where we add our content, which we then project into our server element, let's say we also want to place a local reference on this paragraph. So the content paragraph maybe. But now we want to use that in our server element component, which is where this content will end up in the end. Now in the app component, which is where we currently place this in the template, we could use add ViewChild because it's in the template of the app component, even though it will be kind of passed on to the server element component later. Since we know that it will be there, it would be nice if we could also access it from the server element component, but add the ViewChild won't work because it's not part of the view, it's part of the content, which is why we also have separate hooks here, content in it and view in it. The great thing is, we don't only have add ViewChild, we also have add content child, which also needs to be imported from add Angular core. This now also allows us to pass a selector, so the reference name, content paragraph would be the selector we chose here in the app component HTML file. And then, just like with add ViewChild, we can store this in some property which will be of type elementRef, like this. And now we can use it, and just like with viewRef, we of course can't access the value or anything before we reached content init. So that is something I just wanted to add content child to get access to content which is stored in another component but then passed on via ng content. Now let me log this, and I will log it here in onInit to demonstrate that it is not there. Here I will simply output text content of paragraph, and access this paragraph native element text content, and then I will copy this to after content init. Now once I save this and I reload the application, you see that the first time we call it, it's empty here after on init, but thereafter in ng after content init, or after this has been called, once this hook has been called, we see just the test, so now it was initialized. That is the missing piece, understanding how we can get access to elements in our DOM and how we can work with these lifecycle hooks. So throughout this section, you learned a lot about components. We really had a deep dive on them. You learned how to use data binding with custom properties and events, how to pass data around, how to access elements in your DOM, how to use local references, how to really create a dynamic app, and how to use lifecycle hooks to run some code at specific points of time. With that, a lot of core features of Angular have been set now, have been taught. Now it's the time to, of course, practice them in the recipe book in the next module, where we will enhance this with our new knowledge, and of course to play around with that knowledge in your own apps. So let's move on to the recipe book before we then dive deeper into directives.